so I'm here to answer any questions you may have. But this is something that is very, very troubling to all of us.
Are you pleased, disappointed? Do you wish that they could have found out if that phone call after they found more remains and what they did? I mean, why couldn't they get an honest answer on it?
Well, I don't have a complete explanation as to where communications gets broken down, but I'll say this, that in the scope of any investigation itself of this type, and this is an unprecedented investigation, it's not something that happens in a manner where you have past practices that allow you to do things better. It was kind of a situation where we're moving in a direction, and it's a direction that has to change because that direction wasn't the proper direction. But the nature of the Sheriff's Department's conduct is that persistence always leads to a better solution than to just stop an initiative, and I think in this case we have something to improve on.
Sheriff, what is the biggest thing that you've done to improve on the...
Do you agree that more training is needed?
Undoubtedly more training is needed because you have a situation where so many personnel come in and out of problems such as this, and you cannot have someone who doesn't have continuous training dealing with these kind of problems.
What are the major things that you've done to make sure the situation doesn't happen again, that there is continued communication if an event like this occurs again?
Well, the major thing is this, the practicality of making an arrest in one part of an area and then coming all the way about 12 or 13 miles to a sheriff's station in order to book that individual is the #1 problem. And I think that thing is going to have to get solved. I have a plan with Supervisor Yaroslavsky to build a substation on the water side of Malibu and allow for whatever's going to happen to be within the contiguousness of the place of arrest, so that even vehicles, in this case, my biggest self-criticism in terms of the Sheriff's Department is that this young lady should not have been brought to the Sheriff's Station in the first place, and that she ultimately was put in a place that she was totally unfamiliar with. She certainly knew how to get to the restaurant, but I can assure you she would not have known how to get back to the restaurant or even get back to her car. And so what we have to recognize is the impracticality of a station that is not even near where the person was arrested.
Sheriff, I know you can't talk about the case itself, but I mean, does your department bear some responsibility, the fact that you did settle and did settle for the money?
Absolutely. The Sheriff's Department is not without fault here, and I don't think we're in dispute. I believe the important thing now is, was the death of Mitrice Richardson the result of an accident in terms of being lost, or is it the result of somebody else? And I'm still looking for answers on this. I'm not convinced that I have all the answers about this.
So who's to blame here, Sheriff?
Well, all of us, the Sheriff's Department included. The whole idea of her being arrested by an innkeeper for a meal that was not paid is a problem. The idea that her car was towed is a problem, and her personal belongings were in the car. The idea that the telephone that she had, the only communication tool she had, was not provided to her at a point where she needed it. All these things are elements that, if one had changed to another level, we may not be here. But at the same time, we have to understand that there is a possibility that somebody was involved with her. Now, I don't know, the evidence isn't showing it. The coroner's office has not concluded anything. But I have my own concerns. And I believe that I have to keep on asking the public, and I have a sign here for Crime Stoppers that I want to make sure that you definitely talk about this, that if anyone who's seen Mitrice Richardson at the time in question when she left the station to the time when her remains were found, to call us on Crime Stoppers, and we will follow up with whatever that information is. There's no doubt that this is a very, very serious situation that has a lot of unresolved.
Mr. Giannakos made it very clear that his report indicated there's no real sign of any cover-up. He said there's no cover-up here. Is that something that you think the public still doesn't believe?
I don't know if the word cover-up is what people believe or don't believe, but what I believe is that people cannot believe that Mitrice Richardson got herself all the way up this canyon and somehow found herself there, unable to come all the way back down. That's what troubles me, and I think it should trouble anybody.
Sheriff Baca, I have an issue. Just as you know, my name is Lauren. I'm Mitrice's aunt.
Yes.
And I have a problem with Mr. Giannakou's report only in that, again, like you just said, we have trouble believing Mitrice walked all the way up to that canyon, took off her clothes, and died. We didn't have the opportunity, the coroner did not have the opportunity, it's black and white, to examine the potential crime scene where Mitrice was found. They didn't have the opportunity to test the soil. It didn't have the opportunity to know if the clothes were on her body when she died versus off the body. So how can we just say this is just a miscommunication? This is somebody's life. This is somebody's family member who is gone forever. And communication is not an excuse. It's not okay. Something needs to change in a major way, not suggestions, not recommendations, not inconclusive reasons why. People's lives are changed forever in a really bad way because of someone's miscommunication. That's not an okay result for me, and I appreciate all your efforts that you've put forward. You have been an amazing advocate for Mitrice, and I really appreciate it. But I think we need to look from the top down as what's going on underneath you. Rawson communicated something to me that was a one-on-one conversation. It was not hearsay, which, as Mike Kessler asked Mr. Giannakou about earlier, that Mike Giannakou was just discounted. It's not okay. I don't understand. Someone needs to take responsibility and say, this was not done properly, period. There's laws that say the coroner, whether or not the phone call was documented or not, someone needs to be put under oath to say, this is, you know, you can't just say somebody's word against another. Somebody's life is gone. Someone needs to take the responsibility for what happened to my niece, period. I don't think it's okay to say no one is at fault. It's not okay. It's not remotely okay for me.
I don't believe, thank you for your comments.
I'm sorry,
I don't believe that anyone is saying no one is at fault. You know, the county has paid significant damages for the errors of the Sheriff's Department. The coroner's office is the primary agency that takes control, as you know, of the remains. Those are the facts as we know them. I believe that this has been a very agonizing experience for everyone involved. No one can imagine a greater tragedy than one that took to this.
Sheriff Baca, what one thing jumped out at Mr. Giannakou's report at you? Anything that surprised you? Anything that you weren't aware of? Give us a sense of what you're taking from this report.
Well, what I take from Mr. Giannakou's report is simply this. There's a chain of events that involve a number of people, whether it's the the restaurant manager, whether it's the deputies on the scene, whether it's the actual booking process, and then the fact that in the booking process we end up with information that may not be correlating to the actual incident itself because it's just a booking form. And then the fact that when she's being released, she's not offered a ride back to wherever the scene is or her car is. Those are things that all came about. And so Mr. Giannakou's report essentially is trying to establish to what extent that the coroner's office has some responsibility.
What were you surprised at reading that? Anything that you weren't aware of?
You know, I'm not surprised at anything. You know, I've been in this business a long time. And just when you think something can be done a different way, and it's not done a different way, the absence of innovation in a situation like this is what troubles me. What does innovation do? It says common sense tells you, don't let her leave the station by herself. Find a way to make a connection to have her go home, and if we can't find a connection, we should take her home.
So nothing surprised you in this report?
No, nothing surprised me.
Sheriff, I didn't really deal with the prisoner, with the jail. This report dealt with finding the bones and trying to recover the body, and it was critical of your officers for a lack of communication, miscommunication, not understanding what was going on. Have you done anything to change that?
Are you talking in terms of the coroner's office?
Yes.
I'm
talking in terms of Giannakou's report.
Well, it's about the coroner's office. It's about the Sheriff's Department. So the Giannakou's report is merely recanting what went on with the Sheriff's Department coroner's office. And all I'm saying is the coroner's office represented one thing to the homicide investigators, and then they denied they represented it. And at the other side of it, the coroner's office is the only body that can examine evidence in terms of what this investigation is all about, in terms of her remains. The Sheriff's Department does not have that rule. You know, they did what they did, We wanted to have another look at this, the remains, and we exhumed the remains, and we had the remains looked at, and there's still no tangible evidence that we can find that relates to a blunt instrument or a bullet wound to the skull or anything that typically result in murder confirmation. So this is open. That's why I'm asking for anyone. We just really want to know, did she get up that canyon on her own? If that's the issue, somebody might have seen her and said, yeah, we saw her walking and she went up there. That would be helpful. But if there was some other means in which she got up there with someone else, that would be extremely helpful, because it does show that there's some complicity on the part of another human being.
Sure, based on what you know, is there any reason, in your estimation, we're just talking about the phone calls, the lack of the phone calls, whatever, communication. Is there any reason that you feel those officers should be disciplined?
Well, the officers themselves were following with existing procedures, and that's why this report is very important, because Mr. Giannacco offered up ways of creating better policies, and we've got a list of those policies. It's in the report. I think we have copies of the report. That's a plus. But the officers also were under the compelling law that if a citizen makes an arrest, you have to make that arrest effectual. You cannot say, well, we're not going to arrest this lady. They don't have the right to say we're not going to do it. What they do have the right to do is to issue a citation.
No, I'm just talking about the bones being found. I mean, I'm not talking about the arrest. I'm just talking about when they went up there, what they saw, what they reported, what they did, the protocol they followed. Did they mishandle it in your estimation?
No, if the coroner's office at one point said the remains could be removed, and then they denied that they said it. I mean, if the coroner's office cannot establish what they said, and the detectives are believing that what was said was go ahead and remove the remains as they're existing, it becomes a dispute. And so we stand firm that they gave the homicide investigators permission to remove the remains. And that's the way we see it.
Is it okay? I know you're here for another matter, but we don't get the chance to see you.
I'm here for you.
Right, can I ask you about, if it's all right with you, I don't want to, is it okay about the situation involving your reserve officers with the cars?
I've provided the board a supervisor's report. I have about 7 reserves who are involved in providing free services to the county. They're state police officers. And as far as take-home cars, we didn't find any evidence of the ones that were being asked for that they were just routinely taking home cars.
So you see nothing wrong? There was nothing shady about this deal?
Nothing shady. I think what happens is that in order to perform reserve duties, they do have to use county vehicles. The issue is, are they taking them home? And the answer is, it doesn't appear that there was any degree of taking home. And there is an occasion where 1 or 2 might have been closer to home rather than driving another 50 miles back to the headquarters. They just stopped at their home and then brought the car back to the headquarters.
Will the practice stop entirely?
No, because there's some that are fully paid for doing this by contracts with other agencies, meaning a transit system. One has a motorcycle. The motorcycle has to be cared for. If you leave a motorcycle in an open air space, like we do radio cars, it results in deterioration of the motorcycle. But it's all paid for by the city of Norwalk. Allegations that the department has looked at, we don't believe that that's the case, but we're meeting with representatives that there's deputies that need to be weeded out has not yet borne its fruit. Every force incident is investigated thoroughly. We're installing cameras, so that kind of will help in the event that there's additional force. We'll record what that force looked like. We'll look at it for ourselves. But I think that what we have is clearly a desire to do much better, and I think we are.
Sheriff, I know you were here with the Crime Stopper sign because you're here to help the family of Mitrice Richardson. Are you here to ask for more tips in regard to really what happened?
That's what I'm asking for. I'm saying, listen.
Can you hold is that the sign that you're asking? Yeah.
This is a program where a citizen who doesn't really want to get involved for whatever their personal reasons are can call and just leave a message. Hi, I'm so-and-so. I'd like to let you know that I know someone who saw Mitrice Richardson walking down this particular street, and I'd like you to know who that person is, and then we can follow up. and see what that person knows.
And I understand that there was no foul play, at least determined, although the family does believe that there was foul play. Are you looking to find out, to try to backtrack exactly what happened to her? Because nobody really knows.
Well, what we do know is that she was last seen in the backyard of a home in an early morning hour, and then from that point we sent radio cars to go see if we can find her, and she was not at that home, and then the owner of the home talked about seeing her in the back of his yard. At that point, we don't know where she went other than where her body was found.
And why are you doing this today?
Well, because it comes in the heel. We want media. I want a lot of media here, and I'm glad you're here because we need to be able to get your word out, our word out through the media, and the media is a valuable resource, and that's why.
Is it believed that she hiked into the canyon and was she found, I don't know, didn't the family say that she hiked into the canyon, she was found naked, and that she died of exposure? Or is that what detectives believe?
Well, there's an element of time that evolved when she was first there, and then of course she expired in that location. But it was a longer period of time before we discovered the remains.
Is there proof that she expired in that location? Because I thought there was ultimately conclusive as to where she actually did.
Well, you can only presume that she expired there because that's where her remains were.
But the autopsy didn't confirm that, correct?
Well, the autopsy can't tell you how someone's body got to
Well,
where it got. The autopsy only tells you what the body looked like.
Can't you send bug casings and dirt samples, blood samples to a lab so they can determine the time and place of death? Or at least rule out certain times and places of
I
death?
think if you'd like, I'd be happy to explain to you the dynamics of where she was found because I think you're probably a little late into the story, but that's okay.
I've actually been to the site a number of times. So.
Well, then you already know your answer.
Oh, I don't. We don't know where she was killed, or if she was killed.
We don't know, you see, but where you do know, in all due respect, where you do know where she was found, her body was washing at a certain degree down this ravine because of the rain. And a lot of the elements of the buried part with soil over her is part of the indicators that she was in one place and was essentially either removing her, the water was either moving her body down the ravine, and at some point it stopped, and in other parts, you know, as she decomposed, parts left her body, and it's all in that space of I'm not sure how long, but it is not a single place for a single body issue.
Sheriff Baca, could you talk about changes in policy related to when a person is picked up and they are in an impaired mental state? You mentioned that the restaurant holds some blame in this. We've met with the restaurant staff and owners, and he has consistently said that they made the citizen's arrest because they knew that she needed help, and that they were given the impression that if they did not make that arrest, she would just be released. They knew that she was not in a right state of mind to be released, which is why they made the citizen's arrest. And I think it's important to say that the restaurant did not just arrest her, they arrested her because they knew she needed to go to the hospital.
Well,
they knew she was impaired.
That does not coincide with our investigative report. Our investigative report established that the manager of the restaurant was upset with the non-payment and insisted that this arrest be made. Now, however the restaurant wants to cover this, that's their business, but I'm telling you, even with the deputies' involvement with this, they were very clear that the owner was upset with the lack of payment.
Can you talk about changes in your policy? There are indications that she was clearly not in the right state of mind, and that there were officers in the station who were aware. Under the legal mandate for evaluation.
I think that's being said. All right. I don't think the deputies were clearly aware of what we're now going to post all this difficulty that everyone's gone through, family and all. I don't think they really knew exactly what her pure state of mind was. She was very cooperative according to what they said in the reports. And I can't
okay, so
with that
can I just say then, has there been any increased training on how to identify signs of a mental health crisis? Has there been any changes in training, identification?
Well, the Sheriff's Department does a significant amount of training on how to deal with mentally ill. But this, like I said, was a circumstance that I don't think anyone had any real clear understanding as to what the ultimate consequence could be.
Is there any memo within the evidence that shows that deputies were concerned about her state of mind? Is there any evidence at all or any documentation?
I'm not sure. You know, I'd have to go back into the reports and look at them. But if there was, certainly that Mr. Giannakou's report would have said so.
And how about I missed, if I may, Sheriff, I missed the beginning. What are the number of? Can you just tell me what are some of the recommendations that have been made in the?
Well, you have the report. I mean, please. I mean, it's a long list of things. I don't need to read them to just make myself sound as though I'm better informed than you are.
I wasn't suggesting that. I was just saying, you know, is there any one that you think is most important, or that you hope will take effect as soon as possible?
All of them have been placed in effect, and I think that's part of the report. I think if you take the time and read it, you'll find it is very thorough. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming, by the way. I'm glad you went up there to see it firsthand.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your time. The skull separately from the torso, etc.
And they photographed the events as they're photographing as they're doing it. So I've seen those photographs. And they took the skull, put it on those plastic sheet, and then they followed them with other.
Have you been out to the site?
Yeah.
You don't think that it's an appropriate place a safe place to sleep and guard a body, especially for like trained search and rescue people? It's a pretty big clearing. It's where the marijuana growers were camped. You know, it says in the report that there's a precarious rock they could have fallen off. I've been out there 4 times, and you know, I've slept on ledges this big before. I'm just wondering what made them determine that it wasn't appropriate to be.
Well, I don't know, but that was, I think the important thing to focus on is that their mindset, their thought process during that afternoon was that we don't have the equipment, we're not prepped to be out here. Okay, so I think that option of staying out there was one which they, in their thought process, went through, passed very quickly. Then the next process, well, can we guard people around the perimeter? Well, they went through that process pretty quickly too. Right. So they came down to their decision making, they came down to 2 essential options. Leave it here, hike it out, or airlift it out. And so this is their decision making. They just, they just
fast. Yeah.
They made a, and I think the confluence of and we go into the chronology pretty heavily because the confluence of diminishing daylight, August the canyon, the Air 5 not being available versus being available. I think all those things came together, and I think really the focus. I know some people wanted this to, intimated this may have been a conspiracy or cover up or something like that. I don't think that's what was going on. I think it was a confluence of a cascade of events which came together. Had that hiker not fallen off Neaton Canyon, fallen off the cliff, the Air 5 would have to be diverted a second time and then go to Huntington Hospital in Pasadena. I don't think this conversation would be going on right now. I think it would have had time to get the SWORD team into the location and we wouldn't be here.
Mr. Giannakou mentioned that the protocol would be for homicide to call the coroner's department. And everything that I've read says that any law enforcement agency is responsible for calling a body into the coroner immediately when it's found, not just the agency that's in charge of an investigation. I was just wondering why that isn't included in the report.
No, we do. Well,
the Lost Hill Station didn't call the coroner.
That's basic protocol.
So normally, like in a normal, so if they found a body out there, like they found a body out there actually back in October, and some hikers found the body. They told the Rangers. The Rangers told the Lost Hill Station. The Lost Hill Station, it's my understanding, called the coroner. Why would they do it? Why would the Lost Hills have called the coroner in that situation, but not with this situation?
I don't know, but was it unusual in the situation with Richardson that they called the coroner, or called homicide before calling the coroner? No, it's not. Okay. Normally, the notifications go by very quickly from one to the other together. So, but there was a delay though. We found in Lost Hill Station notifying the coroner, which lost about 45 minutes of daylight. Right. And they made an immediate notification.
You mean the homicide?
No, homicide immediately notified coroners.
Right.
The delay came in a Lost Hill Station notifying homicide. Right. So they made the same delay in notifying the coroners, would still be in the exact same position.
Correct. Right. I see what you're saying. Right. Thanks for your help.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Take care.
Okay.
Lauren, if you would, what is, what is your reaction?
My initial reaction is I'm very disappointed. I'm very disappointed in the whole process. I'm disappointed in the overall Sheriff's Department, LAPD, and the communication that continues not to exist between the two departments, and the communication to my family and my sister regarding the removal of Mitrice's remains.
Do you still believe that she was in fact murdered and there is a cover-up?
You know, I absolutely feel that she was murdered. My sister feels that she's been murdered. It was her feeling from the very beginning that something was definitely awry in the way she was handled and where she was found. We hiked to the area where she was found. We found a bone where Mitrice's remains were left by some murderer.
What did you think you were going to get out of this report? I mean,
I need someone to take responsibility. Our family needs someone to say, we did this wrong. They are saying, procedures need to be changed, and maybe we'll make suggestions for that. But we need someone to take responsibility. Someone's life is out, is gone. A very beloved member of our family is gone. So for them just to say it was a mistake and breakdown in communication, the police agencies are there to protect and serve us. They need to take their jobs seriously. They need to protect and serve us. They can't just say our training wasn't proper, our procedures weren't proper, maybe we need to tweak them a little bit more. That's not satisfactory to someone who's lost a loved one, because we do depend on them to protect and serve us. That's the bottom line. And they're not pushing paper, they're saving people's lives, and they need to do their jobs.
So even though that there are a series of recommendations that have now been put forward, I know I'm sure you're hopeful that'll help save the next person, but it's not good enough.
Absolutely. The recommendations, we welcome any recommendations. I mean, at least they know that they have to change, but they're still not willing to take responsibility. Mitrice, for our family, she's not going to go in vain. We're going to find justice for her one way or the other. We're not going away, and Sheriff Baca just talking to him, he knows where we are. They just can't say anything to us, and we're going to go away.
And that's why he was here today. He was here because you wanted him to be here.
Absolutely.
To try to help to figure out how she got there, what led to her demise.
Right. He won't say one way or the other, but I think he feels that something wasn't quite right. He certainly wouldn't say there was a cover-up, but I think someone is not coming forward and saying what they saw or heard. And that's what needs to happen. I mean, even somebody from the community, or even someone, maybe a civilian that's working for the Sheriff's Department, someone knows what happened to Mitrice out there. Someone knows. We just need help, because we don't want this to happen to anybody else. No family should have to go through what we went through and have the death of someone in their family happen just because someone just chose not to communicate or do their job properly.
And just make sure that I'm accurate on this. Did she suffer from bipolar disorder?
No,
okay.
No. There's no history of that. But as we have learned, and I have learned, that you can have an onset of bipolar disorder in your early 20s. Mitrice was under a lot of pressure. She had just broken up from a relationship. Her parents are divorcing. She was studying for her LSATs. She was going through a transitionary phase in her life. So
she was under a lot of stress.
Under a lot of stress. So certainly that could have affected her behavior. And it's possible. I didn't know. She actually contacted me that day. I knew something was wrong with her that day. I was not at home. She called, left me a message, and I wasn't able to get in touch with her. She never would not call me back. I texted her, she didn't text me back. And then she said something later that was a little odd. And I just thought, well, I'll get her when I get home. So the bottom line is the sheriffs knew that there was something, based on all the information they had that day, when she was at that restaurant, that something was wrong with this young woman. It didn't have to be pre-planned that we knew something was wrong with her. People come down with mental illnesses, just manic as triggers in their lives. So it just didn't have to happen this way had they done their jobs properly.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Lauren,